Imagine it's the busiest time of the year, Christmas travel chaos at its peak. Passengers are crowded in the terminal, holiday stress is in the air, and the airline staff are running on strict rules. Among the travelers is James Carter, a respected black CEO known for building a billion-dollar tech empire from scratch. He's calm, collected, and expecting nothing more than a smooth boarding experience in the VIP section he's entitled to. But as soon as he steps onto the plane, the unthinkable happens. He's rudely told to give up his seat, pushed aside, and humiliated in front of everyone. Shocked passengers watch as a man who commands respect in boardrooms suddenly finds himself powerless in the sky. James doesn't react like most people would. He doesn't yell, he doesn't plead. Instead, he quietly notes every detail, every slight, every careless word from the crew that crossed the line. What starts as an ordinary boarding quickly turns into a moment that will shake the airline to its core. By the time the plane takes off, James has already made a decision that no one could have anticipated. The question now is, how far will he go to hold those responsible accountable, and will anyone ever see it coming? James sat back in the cramped economy seat they had shoved him into, his mind racing. He had spent decades climbing the corporate ladder, breaking barriers, and proving himself in a world where respect was earned, not given. Yet here he was, treated like just another passenger, his status ignored, his achievements invisible. Around him, the holiday chatter of families and travelers continued, oblivious to the injustice he had just endured. As he glanced at the crew moving down the aisle, he noticed a mix of arrogance and carelessness in their demeanor. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a deliberate display of power over someone they clearly underestimated. James knew that in boardrooms, in business deals, he had influence that could move mountains. But in this moment, confined in a narrow aisle, the roles were reversed. He felt the tension building inside him, the quiet storm before action. Memories of past experiences where people judged him by appearance, rather than ability, flooded back. Every slight he had endured fueled his resolve. James realized this wasn't just about a seat on a plane, it was about accountability, respect, and standing up against systemic By the time the plane reached cruising altitude, the seeds of a plan had already been sown. What he would do next would leave everyone on that flight, and beyond, stunned. The hum of the plane's engines filled the cabin, but James's mind was far from calm. Around him, passengers chatted, laughed, and unwrapped snacks, unaware of the storm brewing in silence. He studied the crew, their movements, their tone, the subtle smirks that had cut deeper than any words. Each of them seemed confident that they could dismiss him without consequence. But James had learned long ago that patience often held more power than immediate confrontation. In the seat across the aisle, a young woman nervously fumbled with her laptop, glancing occasionally at James. She had noticed the exchange during boarding, and whispered to the passenger beside her, "Did you see that? He's a CEO, they just treated him like he was nothing." That small acknowledgement sparked an unspoken tension among other passengers who had witnessed the incident. Some shifted uncomfortably, caught between social decorum and moral outrage. Meanwhile, in James's own thoughts, he replayed the moment repeatedly. He thought about the bigger picture, the systemic bias, the arrogance of authority unchecked, the way society sometimes underestimated people of color, no matter their achievements. Each reflection strengthened his resolve. He considered his options, weighing the impact of subtle exposure versus a public response. Somewhere between strategy and principle, James felt a surge of determination. By the time the plane hit its cruising altitude, the crew would realize they were no longer just dealing with a passenger. They were facing someone who had the power to change everything. Hours passed, and the tension in the cabin thickened. James remained quiet, his calm demeanor masking the storm brewing inside him. He noticed how some passengers kept stealing glances at him, whispering among themselves. The whispers grew louder, a mix of curiosity and disbelief at how a man of his stature had been treated. Even the flight attendants, who had once moved with smug confidence, now seemed uneasy under his steady gaze. James's phone sat on the tray in front of him, a silent tool of power he could unleash at any moment. He thought about sending a message that would ripple far beyond this plane, a move that could hold the crew accountable for every slight, every dismissive word. But he paused, letting suspense hang in the air. There was a psychological edge in letting them squirm first, in making them realize that authority wasn't always on their side. In the rows behind him, passengers shifted, sensing the growing tension. Some wondered if he would speak up. Others feared the fallout. Even the plane itself felt smaller, like the aisle had transformed into a courtroom where judgment waited silently. James's mind raced, considering every angle, every consequence, every possible reaction. The moment of confrontation was coming. It was inevitable, and everyone on that flight would feel the impact. All that remained was the trigger, the instant when patience turned into action. Just as James leaned back, calculating his next move, an announcement crackled over the plane's intercom. The captain's voice was calm but firm, informing everyone that the flight was facing an unexpected delay due to a mechanical issue. Passengers groaned, and murmurs of frustration rippled through the cabin. But for James, this was more than an inconvenience, it was an opportunity. The delay meant the crew would have to spend more time in his presence, giving him leverage he hadn't yet fully exercised. Then, something unexpected happened. One of the passengers, a young journalist traveling home for the holidays, pulled out her camera discreetly. She had witnessed the earlier boarding incident and, sensing a story, began quietly recording. James realized instantly that this was now no longer just about a rude VIP seat. The incident was about to go public, and the airline's reputation was on the line. Every smirk, every dismissive glance from the crew could now be captured and shared with the world. The tension in the cabin escalated. Crew members shifted nervously, their earlier confidence replaced with unease. Passengers sensed that something big was about to happen, though no one yet knew what. James's mind raced faster than the plane itself, weighing the power he held in this moment. One move, one decision. And the dynamics of this flight and perhaps the airline would be changed forever. James stood slowly, his presence commanding the aisle as the plane's cabin fell silent. Every passenger's eyes were on him, the earlier murmurs replaced by anticipation. He addressed the crew with a calm, measured voice that carried authority far beyond the confines of the narrow aisle. He explained how their actions during boarding were not only disrespectful but unacceptable, detailing the humiliation he had endured and the principle of accountability that they had ignored. The flight attendants shifted uneasily, realizing the situation had escalated far beyond a simple misunderstanding. James then revealed a surprise. He had already called the airline's headquarters and filed a formal complaint with full video evidence, including the recording the journalist had captured. Within minutes, the airline's management confirmed that disciplinary action would be taken. Passengers, many of whom had silently supported him, applauded quietly, some even recording the moment to share online. Just when it seemed the ordeal had reached its resolution, James dropped the final twist. He announced that he wasn't just seeking punishment, he was turning this experience into an initiative to train airline staff nationwide on respect, equality, and professionalism. The crew's faces drained of color, understanding that this incident would be remembered long after this flight landed. As the plane touched down, passengers whispered in awe, realizing they had witnessed more than a confrontation. They had witnessed a man transforming injustice into lasting change. As the plane landed, a sense of relief mixed with awe filled the cabin. Passengers quietly congratulated James, many approaching him to express respect for how he handled the situation. What had started as a humiliating experience transformed into a powerful lesson on dignity, accountability, and the impact of standing up for oneself. The young journalist approached him, thanking him for allowing her to document the story, promising it would inspire many. James smiled, knowing the incident would spark conversations far beyond the airline industry. Back on the ground, the airline issued a formal apology, acknowledging the mistakes of the crew and pledging immediate training reforms. The staff involved faced consequences, but James made sure the focus remained on education and improvement rather than personal retaliation. Passengers shared their experiences on social media, turning the story into a viral moment that highlighted the importance of respect and professionalism in every interaction. For James, the journey wasn't just about a seat or an airline, it was a reminder of the power of patience, strategy, and integrity. By standing firm, he had not only reclaimed his dignity but also created meaningful change. As he stepped off the plane into the crisp holiday air, he knew this Christmas would be remembered not for chaos, but for courage, justice, and the quiet strength of doing what was right.